Since no one ever talks about miscarriages, no one really knows that you can make it to your first appointment and get a bad ultrasound. It's true, it's tragic, and it's something Justin and I have dealt with 4 out of the 5 times that we have been pregnant. The news that something went wrong in the early stages of embryonic development is crushing. Before our journey started, I always thought that if the embryo was not right, then it was better to lose a pregnancy early on and it wouldn't be a huge deal. Well, it's not that simple. It is human nature to get excited, to plan and dream as soon as you see those 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. As many times as I've been down this road, I still have a hard time holding back thoughts of what might have been if this is the one. A miscarriage does not happen instantaneous. Like many people, I thought that boom, an explosion happened and then it was over. Maybe it would be easier if every miscarriage was over fast and like a flip of a switch, your body and mind were back to not being pregnant. Sometimes it takes months for a woman's body to fully recover from a miscarriage. There are weekly blood draws, nothing like getting to know your lab personnel, dreaded phone calls regarding numbers, follow-up doctor visits, and regular to occasional complete mental breakdown. When we started this journey and we decided that if we ever wanted to have kids that we would adopt, we just thought it was the right thing for us. Never really wanted to have our own biological children. So then something happened. I was about 30 and a light switch went off and I woke up one day and I thought, hey, I want to have kids. But we got pregnant really quickly, so we were pretty surprised by that because about 6 years before that happened, I had a major surgery. I had a fibroid the size of a football removed from my uterus, along with my ovary and fallopian tube on the right side. The odds were against us in a lot of ways. I didn't know any different, and so I didn't realize that not having pregnancy symptoms is not a good sign. Lo and behold, we go to our first ultrasound appointment. It didn't look good. That was basically what she said. And I was like, what? What do you mean? I mean, I never even realized that you could go into an ultrasound appointment and they tell you that it doesn't look good. Like when you had a miscarriage, that it just like happened and there's blood everywhere and it just was over really fast. And I didn't realize that you could walk around and be pregnant and your baby isn't really developing. So your whole world gets changed around when you see that pregnancy test the first time. Then to have that yanked out from under you, it's just a lot. I think I made it all the way home before I broke down and started crying at that point. Then I had to call my mom and tell her that it wasn't good, and that was really, really hard. It was like, I still like start to cry a little bit. Like when I think about it too much, so I try not to. When you have a pregnancy that's not healthy, you have to do something about it, or you can wait until it makes its way out of your body, which could take months. And I chose not to do that because if it was not good and it didn't have a heartbeat, we had to make a choice what we were going to do. And it is called an abortion. It's not really like the kind of abortion. It's not an elective, like, I don't want to have this baby. It's because it's not healthy. It can damage you or your body if you don't get it out. That was pretty traumatic because I had no idea, again, about that part of it. I had to take some medication that basically broke down the pregnancy tissue. That's what it technically is called. And it takes forever. It doesn't take just a day. It takes weeks, or sometimes one time it took like 2 months. So it's a long process and it sucks all the way through from start to finish. And then you have to go in and get blood draws like every other day to make sure your pregnancy hormone levels are going down and that the pregnancy is leaving your body, basically. And that's what the doctor kept telling us. Like, you have to realize this is bad. But 1, you got pregnant, and 2, miscarriages happen. 1 in 3 pregnancy ends in a miscarriage. So that was reassuring to us. It's like, wow, we got pregnant first try, and then, this is normal. It happens. We left, that whole experience kind of charged up that it was going to be okay, that things were going to work out. Then Then we got pregnant again in May. That pregnancy ended pretty quickly. We're not even sure what really happened, but I was only about 5.5 weeks along when I had a miscarriage, and it did just happen on its own. I didn't take medication, or we didn't have an ultrasound appointment. It just it didn't progress. It was pretty disturbing. It happens, and there's nothing wrong with us, and just to try again, and hopefully it'll work out that time, and it probably will. So, and the fact that we were getting pregnant really quickly, so that was still kind of unusual for my situation. So yeah, end of September 2009, we got pregnant for the third time, and we made it to our first ultrasound appointment, which was at 7 weeks. I tried to get them to let me in a little earlier, just because that first time waiting 8 weeks was pretty traumatic to go in there and have all those hopes that it was going to work out. So my doctor's like, holy pumpkin. We're like, what? And we look up on the screen where the ultrasound's being shown, and there's 2 sacs. So I had a twin pregnancy. As the ultrasound went on, we found out that the 2 embryos did not have heartbeats. And so I was like, should I freak out? She's like, no, don't freak out yet. We'll come back in a week. So, and I was kind of sick that time. Like, I was having some symptoms of pregnancy. We went back a week later, and sure enough, there was no heartbeat for either one. And so found ourselves yet again wondering what we were going to do. And I actually had to have surgery to have the pregnancies removed, because that was the only option. And they wanted to test them to see what the kind of genetic issues were going on, if there was something hereditary, if it was something random, that kind of thing. So we could get some data to figure out anything that we could about why this was happening so often. You only get off work 3 days, and then you go back, and you're not ready. Definitely not ready to face the world. And all the pregnancy hormones are like taken out of your body, and so you just crash. And it was really hard for me, because it was depressing for one thing, and then just trying to get back to my old self was pretty much impossible at that point, for everything that we had went through in less than 8 months. That was a lot to process. So having some outlets to get through it really helped me. Being able to skateboard and exercise and talking about it a lot. I know with my husband and I, we just were able to be open with each other, and I would bring it up and talk about it as much as I needed to, just to get it out, because there's no way I could have kept everything inside. It was so traumatizing to me. After the DNC, they took the pregnancy tissue to Children's Hospital, and they did a genetic culture of the pregnancies to find out what exactly was going on with it. Because there's some serious genetic issues that would make it so that we wouldn't be able to have kids, basically. We were waiting to find out if that was one of the cases, since we had so many losses in a row. It's the most common cause of miscarriage, is the trisomy. So she told me, like, the twin pregnancy was both male. So that was kind of freaky to know that part of it. And it kind of like, for a while I was like, well, the pregnancies weren't right, so it's not that big of a deal. So that kept me going through all this. And then when she told me they were both male, it kind of made me think, like, holy crap, like, these are babies. They're just not working out right, but they were boys. We had 2 boys. So I guess that kind of like started changing my perspective on everything. I didn't just like say, oh, well, it wasn't right. It wasn't meant to be. There was more attachment to it. One of the doctors came in, and she said that she had some paperwork for me to sign, and so she's like going over it with me, and it was basically like the death certificate for our twins, I guess you would say. I started crying, like, when it said, like, I had to sign it, and it said mother's name, and I had to sign my name. It was really intense and traumatic, and it's like one of those things that kind of sticks out, that comes back once in a while to haunt you. Yeah, I never knew all this before we went through this. After we had the results and for the twin pregnancy, we were referred to a specialist, an infertility specialist, and we wanted to be pregnant. We wanted to have a healthy pregnancy, like, you know, when we first started trying, like everybody does. So just even to wait 2 or 3 weeks to even get your foot in the door to find out what's wrong seemed like years for us. The doctor said that we were just not having very good luck and that they're random occurrences. It really pissed me off because you want answers when you're going through something like this. You want something to say, this is why we're going through this and this is how they can help us. And in February of 2010, we got pregnant again, so we had a little break there. We made it to our ultrasound at 6 weeks. Of course, I'm a nervous wreck every time I go and get an ultrasound because of my past experience. So we made it in there, and sure enough, there wasn't a heartbeat. So it was just kind of like this never-ending cycle. That was 4 in a row. As soon as they told me it was not good, I just wanted to try again. So, because I just felt like it was going to happen, that we were going to have a kid someday. I still had this hope that and drive that it was going to happen. We did some medication, things like that, to try to help speed up the process, and we got pregnant again in September. Actually, that was really hard because we went in and there was a heartbeat at 6.5 weeks, and she said it was slow. No, it's probably just going to slow down and basically stop, because it was like we almost had it, and it felt real. It felt, that time, it really felt like this is it. All the thoughts in my head were like super positive. I just had all these feelings that it was going to be good this time. Having a DNC for that pregnancy, because we wanted to test that one because it did have a heartbeat. And so I had that done. There was no genetic issues with it, so, and it was a girl. From all of that negativity, I still felt like, oh my God, like we had a normal pregnancy. It was normal. And so we can do this. We can go on. And so it kind of gave us a little bit more encouragement to keep going, because at that point we were like, okay, this has happened 5 times now, basically in a row over 3 years. How much more can we really handle? Then we started going the IVF route, doing in vitro, because if we did that, basically they could test the embryos before they implanted them to make sure that they were normal embryos and that they didn't have genetic issues. The price tag was $20,000. So that was kind of stressful to think about. I called the insurance company and they're like, it's not covered at all. And I was like, wait a second, on this day I called and they told me it was covered. And so legally they had to cover our IVF procedure. Didn't have a very good result the first time. I went through all the different medications. There's tons of shots that you give yourself, or Justin would give me, and I'd scream because it hurt so bad. And you have hormones and all kinds of different things, and blood draws, and it's quite intense. We were like, this is what it takes, this is what it takes. We went through and we ended up transferring one embryo. We didn't do the genetic testing on it because we only had one embryo. Anyway, it didn't work. Pretty much the lowest point, I think, when we found out that it didn't work. Okay, now what? Now what do we do? So I just remember like crying and asking Justin, like, would it be okay if we stopped? Like, I just feel like I'm losing myself. If I go any further, I'm not going to get myself back. That I'm just going to be so damaged beyond repair. I don't think I can do it anymore. But I still want to be a parent. It doesn't seem right to go through everything that we did and never be able to raise a child. We talked about adoption, and we ended up taking classes through Franklin County Children's Services. We were looking into adopting an older child, like between 8 and 10, somewhere around there, just because the whole baby scheme was really traumatic to me. Like, every person that walks by you is pregnant. or they have a kid and they're pregnant, or they have 5 kids and they're pregnant, and you're just like, oh my God. I mean, I got to the point where I wouldn't even leave the house because I was just wanted to avoid that. I wouldn't go to the store because that's all you see. Everybody that doesn't want to get pregnant gets pregnant. The night before we graduated with our certificate, I took a pregnancy test because we had went on vacation 2 weeks before that in California, and we had a really good time, and well, lo and behold, we brought back a passenger we did not know about until 2 weeks later. I mean, after you go through 5 pregnancy tests that are positive and it doesn't work out, I mean, you see it and you're just like, no, I don't want to be on this roller coaster anymore. As much as I really want it in the back of my head, I don't. So it wasn't a pleasant moment for me. We had to cancel our home study. We made it to our 8-week ultrasound appointment, and best day of my life. From the first day I found out that I was pregnant, I was like, I'm just not going to even think about it. I'm just going to continue life, just not start planning. Because as soon as you're pregnant, you're like, I'm going to do the baby room and this, and we could do these names, and I'm going to do this and that. And I just was like, no, I'm not going to go there. But I was very sick, and I was not able to eat much. And I mean, I had morning sickness 24/7. And so we ended up making it to the appointment, and it was intense. I don't really even remember that day because it was so intense, like trying to get up the willpower to walk in those doors and put myself through that again was just, I can't even explain how hard my heart was pounding. The doctor brought the ultrasound up on the screen, turns the screen around and shows us that heartbeat, and it's like, she's like, see, you have an embryo, it's measuring the right date. This was amazing that we were going through, that we'd been through everything that we had, and we stuck it out, and we were there. It was like the moment. Looks like you're going to be having a baby. We were just, it was insane. I thought I was going to throw up just from all the adrenaline and stress. I guess the next thing I remember is in the car, I'm like dialing to try to call my mom. So finally I got through to her, and I was like, she's like, hello? Like, she's all scared. And I'm like, it's good. And she's like, what? I'm like, it's good. It has a heartbeat. It's measuring right. And I'm like crying. And she's like, what? Oh my God. And she's like crying, and Justin's crying. And it was a big old cry fest, I guess. But it was an awesome cry fest. We waited the week and went back, and I think I was even more nervous that time because there was so much pressure then. It was better than great. It was the best. We found out that we were having a baby, and we had a due date. We'd never had a due date before because we never got that far. That was a pretty important day in our life, and I just remember being like so numb. I was really sick for the first 4 months of my pregnancy, which I was like, okay, that's cool. It was reassuring to me that I was sick. It's like, okay, I'm pregnant, it's working out, it's good, I'm sick. The pregnancy was really smooth. We found out that we were having a boy. We had ultrasounds all the time because I was high risk because of my previous surgeries. And I wasn't scared at all. It was just very natural for me. So we made it all the way to 36 weeks, and we had to deliver our son at 36 weeks because of my history with the fibroid tumor. We knew he was going to be a month early, and we were very optimistic that it would be fine. Everything would be fine, which is what you should do. I had a C-section, and he was born on June 29th, 2012 at 8:38 a.m. Weighed 5 pounds, 15 ounces. But they took him to the NICU shortly after he was born because he was having some issues with respiratory distress, and he ended up staying in the NICU for 12 days, and that was really rough. But I feel like everything that we went through with the infertility and the miscarriages really helped us through that situation at the hospital. I feel like, we had seen so much and been through so much that Justin and I we knew how to deal with it. It was hard, but we got through it, and we tried to stay positive, and we were there for each other and there for Calix, and it's weird how it all worked out, because I feel like everything that we went through prepared us to be Calix's parents from the very second he was born. Justin and I have been strong throughout the whole 5 years, I guess, now. And we never once fought about the situation. But, our doctor looked at us and said, I can't even believe you guys are still together and married. Most people would have divorced by now. And actually, like, when we had the ultrasound appointment, our doctor was like, you're only the second person I know that went through as much as you did and stuck it out and had a baby. And I was like, wow, that's crazy, because there's thousands of people that go through that clinic to try to get pregnant. And, kind of crazy to think about how intense that is.